Imagine you're walking through Seoul on a Tuesday evening. The city is a river of light, a symphony of neon signs humming over streets packed with people, friends laughing, couples sharing earbuds, workers in sharp suits hurrying home. Everyone seems to be moving, striving, building towards something. But then you notice something else, or rather, the absence of something. You don't hear the chaotic joy of children playing in the alleyways. You see very few parents pushing strollers, tiny dogs dressed in designer sweaters, owners cooing at them with the tenderness once reserved for a different kind of small being. It's a subtle shift, a quiet subtraction from the city's vibrant equation. This isn't just a feeling, it's a reality being lived by millions. In South Korea, the idea of family, once the bedrock of society, is being profoundly reshaped. For young people like Min Jun, a 29-year-old graphic designer, life is a treadmill. He wakes up before the sun, works a 10-hour day, spends another 2 hours commuting, and then maybe, if he has the energy, studies for a certification that might get him a promotion. The thought of adding a child to this relentless schedule feels less like a joy and more like an impossible burden. So let's talk about the numbers for a second, because they are, to put it mildly, staggering. In 2023, South Korea's total fertility rate dropped to 0.72. The total fertility rate is the average number of children a woman is expected to have in her lifetime. To put that in perspective, a country needs a rate of 2.1 to keep its population stable. The replacement rate. South Korea is not just below the replacement rate, it has fallen off a demographic cliff. It's the lowest rate in the entire world by a significant margin. This isn't a slow leak, it's a deluge. It makes demographers sit up straight and use words like unprecedented. What does 0.72 actually mean? For every 100 couples, only 72 children are being born. This creates a kind of reverse pyramid. Imagine a family tree, but instead of branching out, it narrows. You have 4 grandparents, 2 parents, and then maybe 1 child. Or maybe no child at all. This is the quiet math of disappearance. Each year, there are more funerals than births. The country is getting smaller day by day. Projections show 51 million could be cut in half by the year 2100. That's like the entire city of Seoul disappearing. So why is this happening? Why, in a country that is safe, prosperous, technologically advanced, are people choosing not to have children? Well, the answer isn't simple, but it boils down to a word: pressure. The pressure is immense, all-encompassing, and starts almost from birth. Life in South Korea is often described as a relentless competition. It's a competition to get into the best kindergarten, the best elementary school, the best middle school, culminating in the sunong, an 8-hour university entrance exam that can determine your entire future. This educational arms race is incredibly expensive. Parents are expected to spend a fortune on private tutors, hagwons. A recent report showed South Korean parents spend more on private education than parents in any other country. For a typical family, this can mean dedicating a huge portion of their income just to ensure their child doesn't fall behind. So when a young couple like Ji-yoon and her husband, both office workers in their early 30s, think about having a child, they don't just see chubby cheeks and first steps. They see a 20-year invoice for tutoring, exam prep, enrichment classes that they simply cannot afford to pay. The first and most obvious place you see a country run out of children is in its schools. All across South Korea, especially in rural areas, schools are closing their doors for good. Silent, empty school building interior, morning announcements, playground games, graduation songs, drive for miles, school after school shuttered. Gates chained shut at small schools, sports fields overgrown with weeds. Elementary schools closed or merged in 2023. Middle schools closed or merged in 2023. High schools closed or merged in 2023. It's a tangible, heartbreaking sign of a disappearing generation. For the schools that remain open, the experience is completely different from a generation ago. Once packed with 50 or 60 students, now have maybe 15 students. In some rural schools, as few as 5. Imagine being a child in a first-grade class with only 4 other kids. Your pool of potential friends is tiny. There aren't enough players for a proper game of soccer. The school festival feels small and quiet. While smaller class sizes can be good for individual attention, this is something else entirely. It's a kind of lonely education where the social vibrancy that is so crucial to childhood development is missing. The shrinking population isn't just emptying schools, it's fundamentally changing the landscape of cities and the nature of work. In the vast, sprawling metropolis of Seoul, the change is subtle but pretty pervasive. You see it in the rise of businesses catering to single-person households, convenience stores stacked with single-serving meals, restaurants adding more counter seats for solo diners, solo karaoke booths. The city is adapting to more people living alone. The collective, family-oriented culture is shifting toward a more individualistic, sometimes isolating urban experience. Then there is the effect on the economy. For decades, growth came from a large, productive workforce. Now that workforce is aging and shrinking. Industries face severe labor shortages. Manufacturing, agriculture, factories struggle to find young workers for tough manual labor. Farms increasingly rely on migrant workers to harvest crops. That reliance sparks social tensions but feels unavoidable. The country must rethink what its workforce will look like. The military is feeling the strain. Mandatory service for able-bodied young men, necessary given tensions with North Korea. But the number of 20-year-old men is falling sharply each year. Let's zoom in on the human level, because that's where this story really lives. Meet Mrs. Kim, a 68-year-old grandmother who lives in a small apartment in Incheon. Her son is 40 and a successful manager at a tech company. He and his wife have decided not to have children. Mrs. Kim understands their reasons, the long work hours, the expense, but it doesn't stop the ache in her heart. She watches friends post photos of grandchildren on Kakao Talk. She sees them at family gatherings, their faces lit up with joy. For her, the silence in her son's apartment is a constant painful reminder of a future she will never have. Her plea is a quiet one. She doesn't want to pressure them, but she dreams of teaching a child to make kimchi, of telling stories about her own childhood. For her generation, continuing the family line was a sacred duty. To see that line end feels like a failure. Her story repeats in millions of homes across the country, a quiet grief at the dinner table. Now consider her son, Park Hyun-woo. He loves his mother dearly and feels a profound guilt. He and his wife have late-night conversations after exhausting weeks. The South Korean government is, of course, acutely aware of this crisis. They are not standing by idly. Over the last 2 decades, they have spent more than $280 billion on policies to encourage more babies. That's an almost incomprehensible amount. They have tried almost everything you can imagine. Cash bonuses for each child, baby bounties, expanded public daycare centers, subsidized childcare costs, increased paid parental leave for mothers, increased paid parental leave for fathers. They've also tried more creative, sometimes controversial, initiatives. Mass blind dating events for public servants to encourage marriage. They once declared a family day, turning off government office lights at 7 p.m. These efforts, while well-intentioned, are often criticized as superficial. It's like trying to fix a deep structural crack in a foundation with a coat of paint. They don't address the root causes: the hyper-competitive society, unaffordable housing, a punishing work culture. The results have been, to be blunt, a failure. Despite billions, the birth rate keeps sliding downward. Baby bounties are a drop in the bucket compared to the lifetime cost of raising a child. Parental leave exists on paper, but many employees, especially men, are afraid to take it. The government's approach looks like a scattered top-down rain dance. This has driven frustration and cynicism among young people. They see money being thrown at a problem without understanding lived reality. In the end, this is not a story about numbers on a chart. 0.72 is not just a statistic, it's the quiet decision of a young couple in a tiny apartment. They look at their bank account, they look at their work schedules, and they say, "We can't." It's the unspoken grief of a grandmother who longs to hold a grandchild she will never meet. It's the exhaustion of a young employee trying to build a career. They feel the weight of an aging nation on their shoulders. It's a story about people making the most rational decisions they can, in a system that feels irrational. This should matter to all of us, no matter where we live. South Korea is at the extreme end of this trend, but it is not alone. Fertility rates are falling in many developed countries around the world. We are all, to varying degrees, grappling with the same questions. What does it mean to build a good life in the 21st century? What do we owe to our parents? What do we owe to our children? What do we owe to ourselves? The choices of young South Koreans are not selfishness or rejection of family. They are a cry for help. Because how to build a society where people feel hopeful enough to have children is one of the most important questions we can ask.